everybody's personal story with mediumship. I think not only is it just really interesting, but I think it's helpful for other people that are on this journey or maybe haven't really started yet to just hear other people's experience and to hear what other people have gone through, how they've kind of come to this life path, because it's all very unique, but there's also a lot of overlap and similarities that I see. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And I think sometimes it's just so helpful for some people to just hear another person's story, and then they can be like, oh, wow, I really relate to that. And it can be really helpful along your path and can just give people some encouragement to show them that, this is definitely a thing that can happen. It's a thing that also can be very positive and doesn't have to be a struggle. And also that you're very much not alone in this whole situation either. There's so many more mediums out there, I think, than people even realize. And so I think it's so important to get that message out there. So that's definitely one of the reasons that we are here today. So I really wanted to start with just asking you about basically, because here's the thing, I feel like, some mediums, I think a lot of natural mediums, which I know you are born with their abilities, but I also think that there's kind of two types of ways people go into mediumship, where either you're born with it and like you're immediately like, oh, I talk to dead people, and like, you see it, you hear it, and everyone just knows that that's like what you do from like a very young age. But then there's also what I find is like latent mediumship, which, it's basically kind of my experience, and I know kind of yours as well, where, we may have been born with it, right? But we didn't really come into that calling until later on in life. So I would just be really interested to just kind of hear some of your background and just kind of how you came into mediumship and how it was when you were younger, how it was as you got older, and just kind of how that happened, how it all unfolded. So I would love to hear that.
Well, first, I have to second, third, and fourth everything you just said leading into this. I absolutely believe that there's all kinds of ways to come into mediumship, and our society and the way that we function is that, as a whole, I think, is that we kind of put people in boxes like, that's my lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a this. And you can be a real estate agent or a clerk at a grocery store and be a medium. I feel this is the biggest thing, if you can take one takeaway, is that everybody is born a soul with a body. You're not a body with a soul, which in my opinion and my experience in mediumship and communicating in evidential mediumship is that every one of us has a connection. Every one of us can speak and can hear, whether you know it or not, you're being guided by spirit. There's not such a thing as a coincidence. So when you have that gut feeling, that intuition before something happens, or I'm going to take a right instead of a left, or things like that, you just have this knowing about something. I believe that is your sensitivity, it is communication, and then that is what's developed into your mediumship. So Daisy, you're absolutely right that I believe you're absolutely right that we all have that connection, and some people have it more readily when they're younger, but I think we all have it is the point. And I would agree that most mediums that I meet have developed later over time, but they've had things happen over their life, as most people that don't call themselves a medium have had experiences. Maybe they've seen something, maybe they've just different things. So when I was little, I grew up in a very a very Catholic background. Let's start with that. So this is not something that we do, but if you actually know anything about the religion, there's actually quite a bit about mediumship and intuition and speaking to, how a lot of things that came from the Bible, a lot came from intuition and messages and messengers. So I was very young, and I actually, on several occasions, I had an experience where I saw spirit with my actual eyes. It looked like a real person. I'll tell you one. I would say I was like 6, maybe 5 or 6, and I was in a bathtub with my siblings, and my dad was in there giving us a bath, and I saw a soldier standing, and I can still to this day tell you exactly what he was wearing. And I was a child, and I jumped out. I was not afraid of him. He did not speak. And I like ran after him into my mom's bedroom. And I'm like, she's like, what are you doing? Because I'm covered in soap bubbles and I'm trying to find this man in her room. And I said, there's a soldier. Did you see the soldier? And she asked me a lot of questions. And it was never a weird or taboo thing. And that was it. Like I didn't think much of it. And I had a couple experiences like that growing up, but I didn't say, oh, that was a dead person or oh, this happened, right? And
Yep.
my dad's a very sciencey guy, and he actually did some research and found out a lot about the history of where we lived in Alexandria and kind of some of the details of that soldier, and was able to verify things way before Google or any of that. So very interesting. And then I think everyone has kind of these defining moments in their life, and most people will have experienced a loss that changes you forever.
Yeah.
And my very, very best friend, my brother, was 22 years old and suddenly died in a car accident. And I have to tell you, at that point, you're in this state of grief and anger, and I'm like, it's kind of like a parallel universe that you don't even know how to breathe again, let alone process or accept what happened. And so it took me a long time to even just start functioning. You kind of go through numbness and anger. And I was farthest away I've ever been from God. And I do believe in God, or spirit, whatever you want to call it. I call it God. And then I saw, you're going to laugh, but John Edwards. Do you know John Edwards, Daisy?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I swear to you, I saw this gallery called Crossing Over. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had been getting all these weird things. I had been having these very vivid dreams that felt so real, which I now know to be visitations. You know them in detail, they don't speak, but it's so real, right? And it validated so many things that I just really knew and so many things that I had experienced. And I shared it with my mom, who was also, mother of five, not processing very well. And that started the journey a little bit where I started to really start meditation. I started to look inward. And then one day, my mom's friend came to her and said, have you heard of this place called Lilydale? And she's like, Lilydale, what's that? And she's like, it's the biggest community for spiritualists in the nation. And I was like, well, I am not a spiritualist. I'm Catholic. And she said, I understand that you are, and but this isn't about religion. This is about your son. And my mom's like, what? And so this woman started telling my mom about how she went to Lilydale and there was this stump party. And it's really funny the way she describes it now. Like, we had a stump party. So in my head, I'm thinking like all these old women sitting on stumps and weird people coming and talking to them. Like, it didn't make any sense. But she started to talk about how this medium came up to her and said, I have your grandfather here. And it was so specific in evidence, and told her about a picture she would find in a book and where that would be found. And she actually went home thinking, and she was the biggest like skeptic. She was like, yeah, whatever. She goes home and she finds the picture, the exact picture, and she was adopted. So she actually never knew that this was her grandfather, but it was able to be validated. And now I know that's the best kind of evidence, because if the sitter doesn't know about it, the medium could not have gotten that psychically. There had to have been a communication in order for them to get that information. So we went, long and short of it, we gathered a group of women, we flew to Lilydale, we went, and it was the most magical place. At first, you don't know what to expect. And then we took a class, and I had no intention of being medium. I just wanted to know my brother was okay. That was it. So on the plane ride, my mom says, listen, I read this. We should invite them. We should talk to spirit. We don't realize it, but you're in communication all the time. When you're thinking, they hear you. They hear your thoughts. They hear your wishes. They are in dialogue with you all the time, and you are receiving information all the time. My mom said, let's invite them to come. Like, let's invite them to come. So when we go and sit, you sit in a, I don't know if anybody has been there, you sit in like a platform arena, like it. So you sit outside or in this open space, and a medium comes, and it's an evidential medium, and they bring you loved ones through, and you say, oh, that's my brother. He's a fireman, and he's this and this and this, right? So we get there, and the first thing, the lady stands up and she's like, I have a young man here that passed in a car accident. And we all were quiet because we'd never done this before. And she said, he's coming with a invitation, and he opens it like he just got a party invitation, and he's bringing all these people with him. But it was so specific because we had just literally talked about it in the plane. So that's where it began. And then we took a class there, again, not wanting to be a medium. I took it with Bill Collar and Sharon Shupis, and I have to tell you, it changed my life forever. They had us do some exercises that actually went really easily, almost to the point that you feel like you're kind of making it up. But when you're sitting with a sitter across from you in practice and they're saying, yes, that's correct. And you're like, okay, this is crazy. And they're like, no, really, that happened. You start to say, there's something more to this, right? There's something more to this. And so I'll give you an example in that class. And I won't use any names. So whenever I do readings, that's private to the sitter. So I'll just use it in generalities. But we had an exercise and there was a man sitting in front of me. And I brought through a young boy that had passed. And I knew that he had fallen off of something and he hit his head. And I knew there was, and I was brand new. Remember, I'm not a medium at this point. And I was seeing all these vivid pictures in my head. And I was just saying the pictures I was seeing. And then this knowingness, and it was about this little boy that they had shut down the town. And I saw all of the little Boy Scout cars, you know, they had carved the cars and they raced them. And he was like, I'm not sure. And then he remembered when it was the very first funeral he had ever been to. It was a very small town. I had the name, but I can't remember it now. And the whole town had shut down because the boy had fallen off a ladder and passed away. And he is in Boy Scouts. And so all the Boy Scouts came with their cars and put it on his gravesite. So it was very good evidence, something that only he would know. And that's when you start to realize, wow, I don't know what this is, but I want to explore more. And then when you start to realize what it does in your life and how it changes your life and helps you heal a lot of things inside of you and have a different perception and framework, and then you know you can start the healing process I sit with a lot of families that have lost children, especially of different cancers, diseases, and that's really tough. And it's tough as a medium too, because there's a big responsibility in that. But when you can sit with somebody and you can give them the thing you needed the very most. When my brother died, I couldn't even breathe. And you sit in front of somebody and you know that it's not you. You're saying, let them see you, not me. You're connecting them and they can feel their loved one. And it's based with evidence and love and messages that really help them to start healing again. There's something incredible about that. So sorry for the long story, but I get
Oh,
so
that's what I
excited.
wanted.
Yeah, something about it. It changed my life forever. It made me a better wife, a better person. I feel full. I found really what life's about. And through that, I'm now living a life that I never thought possible. And people ask me all the time, how did you get from here to there? How are you living that life? And we'll talk about that, I think, in a little bit. But how did you do that? And I have to tell you, a lot of the credit goes to opening and developing my sensitivity and believing that you're supported by spirit, you're supported by your loved ones, and that there's really nothing to fear here. There's nothing except for your own limiting beliefs and your fear of what other people might think of you that limits you. But other than that, this experience here, this school on earth, is all about taking risks and all about exploring and all about connecting and growing yourself. So I attribute all that to my mediumship.
I love that. No, and I love everything that you just said. And just what, and I love, I mean, a few things that you said. One of the things that I love that you said was talking about how, you know, first off, yes, everybody absolutely has, a connection to the other side. It doesn't mean that everyone is going to be a professional medium, but everybody absolutely has that connection. And it's something that I always encourage my clients as well to, I always tell them, like, no one is ever going to have a deeper connection to your loved one than you, so no medium is going to have a closer connection to your loved ones than you. They're yours. So I always encourage my clients, I get how like being with a medium can help unlock certain things because it helps you get out of your own head. Because I think it can be hard sometimes for people, especially I think you probably know this as well. Being a medium, it's sometimes hard for us to get our own messages from loved ones because we're just so used to giving it to other people. And it's hard for us to sometimes detach from that and trust it. So, the medium absolutely has a purpose. But I think if anything, I try to have it be something that can unlock that door to someone's, idea that, oh, like I can have this connection whenever I want. And it's always been there, it's always been there. And I also loved how you're talking about how, you can use mediumship, because I also encourage a lot of my students about this, is just that you can use mediumship in so many ways. And I think that's one of the things I love about it, is how versatile it can be and how creative it can be. And I really think that that's makes it so fascinating. There's so many different types of mediumship and ways that we can bring through that wisdom, that evidence, that information. And there's a lot of people that aren't professional mediums that use those abilities and those gifts to help other people, just doing other work that they do, and I think that's the way it should be. I think it's awesome when people can combine it with things like that. And I think the other thing that I loved also that you pointed out was just how much it healed you too. Because I think that's something that is so important. I think it's two things where people sometimes I think don't realize how healing the work is for the medium themselves, because you're uncovering so many things about yourself and your own life experience, and it just opens your eyes, your spirituality, your trust in a higher power. Because I know for me, what's funny with me is that I was basically an atheist for most of my life. And I didn't open up to that stuff really until I actually got sober. And then I was kind of like, okay, I'm connected, but I still was like, it was a very loose kind of idea with faith and all of that. I was very kind of like, I don't know, but honestly, doing mediumship and experiencing mediumship has developed that in a way that I never would have had an opportunity to experience otherwise. And I think so, yeah. So I think the next thing I would love to ask you is just how that transition was between regular, I have a normal life and now I'm a medium, so how was that for you? What kind of things did you experience? Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, kind of coming out of the spiritual closet is I think what a lot of people call it, right? So I just think it'd be really just interesting to know how that was for you.
So you're seeing it, you're witnessing it live because
Yeah.
while I stand on platform in front of 1,000 people sometimes, and I do lots of readings and I serve at lots of services, and I have probably given thousands and thousands of readings. I I have never actually come out to my friend group and my family group. I feel like if you know me well, you know it's something I do, and I feel that people that find me are through someone else or through a group that's connecting. I don't promote myself. This really isn't a monetary gain. I'm a paid medium, but I don't do this for the money. I do this because I feel like the right people find me, right? So I never advertise. I don't have a Facebook page. I don't put it out there. I think even some people that are very close to me know that I believe in this, but don't understand that I've been working as a medium for a very, very long time. And so I also want to tell you that I feel like they use mediumship in so many things. Like you were just saying real quick, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
it popped this thought when you were talking. Like government even employs mediums for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So UK, especially, they have professional mediums that are certified that work with them on all kinds of things for the government. And they do the same in the States. Our government uses mediums all the time for intel. They use them for uncovering different cases, cold cases, but they also do it for intel a lot of the time. And it's very interesting to see how mediumship is used. And also how much I love that you said you came from being an atheist, and I came from being like a very Catholic, Spanish Catholic family. You know what I mean? And how we both met at the same place, because it really comes down to your belief and faith, and it doesn't matter what you call that thing, you feel it. It's a part of who you are. And mediumship kind of took off. It's like taking off all these masks, right? In society, you wear masks because that's what's socially acceptable. So maybe it's not that you're being fake, it's that some things call for a certain dress attire, right? And a certain thing you talk about and you don't talk about. And I just feel like when you start to do mediumship, for me in that transition, it's been taking off. Like, for instance, today I'm sitting in front of you. Before I would have had a full makeup on, a beautiful blouse. I like to dress pretty. But I start to come to this place where I still feel so okay with who I am and what I'm doing that it doesn't much matter. If I feel like doing it, I'll do it. And if I don't, I don't. But it kind of allowed me to love myself and accept myself differently and to see people differently. And no matter what walk of life they are and what they do for a living, to not judge them and not to expect anything more of them, and the same with myself. So the transition Hello, I just stepped out of the closet. My name is Arlene Mains, and I am a medium. Uh, this was my kind of coming out party, so thank you, Daisy. I
Oh
appreciate the
yeah.
opportunity to do this. But it takes a lot of bravery because I feel like not everybody understands this, not everybody accepts this, and people think some crazy things. I don't sit
Oh
and
yeah.
do weird things with voodoo dolls. I don't do this. This is a very natural thing.
Yep.
Mediumship, and I'll say this, when you find a good medium, or I believe every single person in their life will come a point where either they feel really stuck or they're experiencing some tremendous grief and loss,
Mhm.
something that they cannot overcome, or they have a very difficult time. A medium can be so beneficial if you find the right medium for you. Not every medium is right for every sitter or every communicator,
Mhm.
but you find a really good medium. And if you need one, Daisy is a tremendous medium. She's got a very big connection, and she's also a teacher, and I'm happy to help connect you to find the right medium. Um, but when you find the right medium, they're going to bring you evidence. They're going to bring you direction. A good medium will never leave you feeling sore-hearted. It doesn't mean that you love everything they say, but the purpose is always to help you find direction, help you find closure, help you to see your options, help to change or shift your perspective. Your mediumship, it can be used for so many things. So in this transition process, I'm starting to kind of step more into the place of the uncomfortable and willingness, because people can access me differently
Mhm.
and I can help people differently if they know that I'm here. So instead of being the secret medium, maybe it's being a proud medium and
Yeah.
someone that can help when you're really in a place that you need some guidance moving forward, or you really need to know that your son, your daughter, your loved one is okay and that they're with you through verifiable, evidential ways. And I keep saying that because not every medium is evidential. And I'm not saying that the people that are not connected. But in
Right.
my way of learning about mediumship and how I was taught and what I really believe, if you don't know where the information's coming from, it's very hard to take that information.
Mhm.
So when you bring through, let me give you an example. My brother passed away.
Right.
If the medium just brought through a young man for me, and that's it, and then told me all this life advice, I'm going to say, well, what the heck? Like, who is it, and why do I believe you, right? But a good medium, or I feel like a medium that, at least in my opinion, is one that's going to bring me evidence that only I know. It's
Yeah.
not generic. It's not. It's not psychic. You can tell, and like Daisy said, you feel your loved one so close in a mediumship reading. You will
Yeah.
feel the presence. You will know that it's true. You'll probably get very emotional because you can feel, they're them stepping close to you because you're sensitive when they're, especially when they're there. um the other thing, a medium, I feel, in my mediumship, the medium, you always have free will. So
Mhm.
when a medium says to you, and this is big in my transition too, is realizing, because I had a lot of anxiety about it,
Yeah.
you're giving people life advice. You're telling them that someone they love is telling them this. This is really, really big responsibility. So we have a responsibility to be accountable, not for the information that comes through, but the quality of it. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
being as clear a vessel as you can, and delivering that. So I feel like, a medium should be able to, one, be evidential, and then two, be clear and in their purpose and be able to help you. This should be something that you walk away from feeling like you have some direction and some clarity and some healing, not feeling more anxious, upset, nervous. And the other thing is this, and maybe you can key on this, Daisy.
Yeah.
When someone comes to sit before me, and I'm helping them, if they come to me and they have just lost their dog, their son, they lost their job, they're homeless now, they have all these world problems, but I bring grandma through with great evidence. And I tell them grandma has a peg leg and a glass eye and all the things that are true about grandma that only make grandma grandma. But then I'm not able to help them and give them any guidance or direction as to what is actually happening in their life and why they're there to see me. Maybe I'm a good medium, but I'm not being effective. I'm not helping them. And the purpose of mediumship, I feel like, is to be able to tune in and say, what is it that they really need today? And what do they need to leave? And sometimes they don't even know. They don't
Yeah.
even know what that is, or they think they know what that is. And then when it comes through later, they'll call me and say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was about to happen. And that message really helped me make that decision. So thank you for bringing that message through. But it's the responsibility of helping to give them direction and being effective as a medium and really conveying what their loved ones and maybe guides have to say. Um, I'm sorry, I just rambled a little bit, but just so
No,
important.
it's all awesome. I mean, it's all fabulous. And like, no, and I think you touched on a lot of really, really good points. Because I mean, that's a big one for me. And like, especially with anyone that I'm teaching, I like what, first of all, like number one, it's like two foundational things that I always try to teach people that are new to this is, first off, it's all about integrity and responsibility. And I really make it clear, like, look, doing mediumship professionally is not for everyone, and that's okay. And I think if anything, the best thing that you can do is be honest with yourself and to really make sure, am I cut out for this or not? I think it can be so harmful when people try to force this calling. Because I think sometimes people will force it because they feel like they need a life purpose. It's very alluring in a lot of ways, but then it can be quite damaging. So I think it's so important because also, unfortunately, which I know we've talked about, is that there isn't really like, a degree that you can get to be screened, and like you have to take like a bar exam, like it as a lawyer, right? There's really not any kind of qualifications. Like you can get qualifications, but you're not required to practice as a medium. And unfortunately, that ends up kind of giving us a bad rap in a lot of situations and can cause a lot of harm. And I think most of the people in that kind of situation, they maybe don't mean to harm people, but they just don't have the right direction. Like they just haven't done the inner work, and they also just haven't been given the right guidance in their development. And because and you really brought up that point, was just that it's all about how we can help our sitter. We could be this hotshot psychic and be like, I can tell you everything that's going on, and it could be with great evidence and detail. But then, okay, I mean, great. Like, what am I going to do with that? It's like there needs to be some form of healing and substance to the service that we offer. And sometimes, just evidential mediumship can be enough for the person. I think it depends on the sitter. And I think that's also what really makes such a great medium, is being able to really tap into what the sitter needs and being able to deliver that as best they can. Because again, like I was saying, I mean, some people that maybe have been a skeptic their whole life, right? And they're just very kind of closed off. Maybe, just some jaw-dropping evidence is exactly what they need, just to like really get that like, oh, this is real, right? Whereas some people, they may already kind of be at that point where they believe in something. So the evidence isn't as important to them, and they more need healing, or they need like some kind of direction, right? So I think a lot of it is realizing that it's a huge responsibility, and it's so much more than just bringing through information. We really need to be aware of what we're delivering, how we're saying it. One thing that drives me crazy is when mediums say, like, they'll say something really almost kind of hurtful or harmful, and they say, well, I just give what I get. I just give what I get. And it's like, okay, good for you. But first of all, that's your job as a medium, is to use discernment. Like, we're translating here. So, okay, you could see something really like kind of disturbing or awful, but there's a way to deliver that in a way that isn't going to be hurtful or, humiliating to a person, especially like in a gallery setting. You
Yeah.
need to use your discernment and have, it's just, there's a lot of layers to really being a solid medium. And I think the other thing you were saying too was like worrying about what other people think too, and all of that. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like I was saying, it's a big part of that is just what's out in TV, the media. There's a lot of misconceptions about mediumship, and I think it's great that it's become more popularized and is more out there to the public. But unfortunately, the most popular, I think, shows and things aren't the best representation of mediumship and like what it really is all about. So I mean, maybe there's more you could touch on with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, please let me just chime in there real quick.
Mhm.
I get asked this question so often,
Mhm.
whether it's someone that I'm helping to teach a little bit, or they want to know how to work on maybe one of their clairs, hearing better, seeing better. I love to help other mediums where I can, and I learn from them as well. Daisy's definitely taught me some things. I feel like people ask me this question: what do you do with bad spirits? Do they attach themselves to you?
Yeah.
And I have to go to tell you this: intention, 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 intention. So that's my thought, my thinking. And this is what I'll say: absolutely, there are not good people in the world. And when you pass over, you are not all of a sudden an angel. You are not all of a sudden a good person. I do not believe in heaven and hell. I believe your processing of your own stuff is your hell. And whether
Yeah.
that's here or there or anywhere in between, there isn't an in between. But I feel that that is hell. That is hell, is when you're
Right.
looking at yourself, you're looking at your worth, you're really processing things. That is the part that's hell. Now, when it comes to this, and this is the analogy that was given to me, and I can't tell you how much I agree with this. If you are going to go into an alleyway where there's drugs and prostitution, all of these horrible things, and you walk down it, you have a higher probability of getting hurt, something happening, right? Being accosted, being whatever, molested, I don't know what, whatever, right? Bad things. You're putting yourself there. If you are choosing to walk down your street for a nice evening stroll with your dog, chances are very good you're not going to get jumped by a drug dealer. My point is, your intention is, there's bad things everywhere in spirit and non spirit. I don't prescribe to it. It doesn't mean that it's not there. It means that I do not let that come into my thinking, and I do not allow that energy into my, when I'm sitting with somebody, it is purely for healing, love, and the intention is to help them the best way possible. So it never comes in. I have never experienced something that feels to me demonic. I have definitely felt something that felt like energy I didn't want, but I didn't explore it. You push it away and you keep going. And I've never, in all the years of mediumship, I have never experienced anything to that level. I see a lot of these shows, and I feel like their intention is sometimes to tap into things that aren't so nice, not so good. I just don't, it doesn't mean that it's not real. I feel like some of those mediums are credible, and I think that things do happen. But I just don't go to those places, and the mediums that I work with don't. It's all about good, it's all about helping, and we just don't go there. Our intention is not that. So I
Right.
think you find what you're looking for. So that's one thing. The other thing with the TV thing, and this is, and Daisy, you can comment on this, and I was taught this and I believe this: once you pass, you're not stuck. Souls are not stuck. And what
Mhm.
I mean is, you're either dead or you're not dead. Okay. So it doesn't mean that you're not having a hard time processing the thoughts or not. There's not, everybody wants to go to the spirit world. Some people leave a child or they leave a situation, they're not ready to go, but they are gone. They're just accepting that process. And when they say we had to help the spirit through, that's
Mhm.
just not true. It
Mhm.
could mean maybe that you're settling in, you're saying, look, I'm good. They're worried about you, but I'm good, but they're not stuck. So when I hear that, it kind of makes me cringe. And when you see things where they see apparitions or they see things, you can, energy is spirit, so there's things that you can see, but more often than not, when they talk about going to Gettysburg and seeing the battles or going to a graveyard, you're not going to see people walking. And if you do, it's an energetic imprint. It's not a soul.
Yep.
You can ask for the soul to come, and you can maybe feel them mediumistically or energetically, but they're not stuck there. They don't live in the graveyard. They don't live there. There's nothing bad or evil, in my opinion. So Daisy, you can weigh in on that a little bit. But when I
Yeah.
see these TV shows, a lot of it is exactly that. It's not that it's not there. It's just something that I feel like their intention is that, and um, I just don't play in that playground.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love all
You
of
know.
this because I think there's so much fear. There's so much fear, and unfortunately, a lot of that comes from these TV shows and movies and all of that. And because it's entertainment, it's just to make entertainment. Some of the shows, I mean, that are out there make me like sick. I mean, I they drive me crazy. There's just
Yeah.
some like shows on like TV. where, there's certain ghost hunters that come and they say this person is going to be killed by a spirit in their home, and that it's causing all of their medical problems, and they're going to die from it. I mean, it's like crazy. I mean, I think that's just
That's
horrible.
not real.
And
That's,
yeah, I mean, it's disgusting to me.
yeah.
I mean,
In
like,
my experience,
yeah,
I don't believe that.
no,
Yeah.
no. And I mean, I think the thing is, it's like what you were saying, like, I don't disbelieve in good and bad. I think that there has to be good and bad for balance in the world, the universe, and all of that. But I just think that a lot of it is there's a lot of misconception around it. And I also think that there's a lot that we don't understand. And I think a lot of the times this like negative stuff, like we're trying to humanize it and like make sense of it, and we turn it into this big scary monster or whatever. And I think a lot of times people also don't realize how much power they have over the energy that they're bringing into their space. And like, because again, like, let's say there's some paranormal activity going on in someone's home, that it doesn't have to be bad, but the person maybe doesn't know better, and they're like, oh my god, it's bad, and now this is going to happen, it's going to get worse, and then like, yeah, and then it's going to get worse because you're adding your
Yeah.
energy to that. And again, I also really try to like make clear to people, it's like, I don't want people to be like, oh my god, so that means that I have to constantly be thinking good thoughts and otherwise I'm going to get hurt. And it's like, no, like, I don't want you to think that like you have to always be on guard. Yeah, it's like, I mean, for a lot of people, I think they're just fearful, or they're afraid, and they think they always have to have their guard up. But just like what Arlene, she brought up such a good point, is like, there's hundreds of, if not thousands of mediums out there that I know personally, that have never experienced anything bad. If we had to be always worried about this kind of thing happening to us, we wouldn't want to do this as a full-time job. I mean, it's just, obviously it's not like that. And most of this is exaggerated. It's made for entertainment. And unfortunately, it ends up being kind of harmful for people that don't have a background or understanding of this stuff. And so I just really try to educate people as much as I can in knowing that, like, you're in control. You're in control. Like, they are not a human. I always think, like, humans are the most harmful thing in the world. Spirits can't do, it's like people are the ones that are harmful. It's like spirits,
Absolutely.
yeah, like spirits, like, just like you were saying, there can be people that were maybe not so great in life that cross over, and like, yeah, they might have stuff to process and deal with and whatever, but they still have this a level of awareness in spirit that is much broader than anything they would have had when they were alive. So whenever I bring through someone like that, it's this level of understanding that is just much more clear, and they're in a place where it's not really it doesn't have the same kind of grip on them and that kind of issue. And
Absolutely.
also, yeah, and also I think in hauntings and stuff like that, I mean, I believe in hauntings, but I completely agree, like, with what you were saying, which is that it's a fragment of someone's soul that is just a recording of memory, because I think there's so many dimensions and so many things that just leave imprints. And I think,
Mhm.
sometimes mediums that believe that they cross people over, they're really just crossing over those fragments, but it's not actually the person. I like using like the
Right.
analogy of just with like birth, right? I trust birth as much as I trust death. They're both natural processes. And if you think about it, even if there's complications in birth, right, and there's some issues, you always end up out of it. You do come out of it, whatever, right? Like, it works out.
That's true.
So it's like, I like to think of death in the same kind of way. Like, we may have certain things we have to work on or deal with as a spirit, but we're gonna get over to the other side. We don't need a human to do that for us.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And kind of like, how your birth, that's a great analogy. When you come here, if we had any part to do with how you put a baby together in your stomach, or any of the science, oh my God, God help us all, right? Like, to make that happen. So it happens naturally. It's a natural process, and it's the same when you leave the world. There's a process to it. There's an order. And if you believe in God or something better, bigger, whatever you call that, they have their system together. It's
Yeah.
trust that there is a system and there's order to things, whether you know it or not. And they do get ready. I mean, speaking And a lot of readings, you actually can see them preparing and getting a team ready to receive you, just like they have a team ready to deliver you
Yeah.
here. And they don't leave you. Either way, you're never by yourself. So that's
Hmm.
important. I wanted to share, if you're okay with this, Daisy, kind of
Yeah.
the other side of that.
Yeah.
Instead of fear, using mediumship in a way about manifestation and believing that anything's possible and believing that there's anything you can do and energetically being able to attract a lot of that to you.
Yeah.
And the other part of that is finding your joy and your purpose. And I get this a lot in my people will come and say, I don't feel joy in my life. What is my purpose? Where am I going? And my answer to that, and I'll try to kind of sum this up so it's not an hour dissertation on this, in a short version, the thing that you love, the thing that you're thinking about, the thing that your brain goes to automatically, the thing that you want to do when you're off of work, or that is the thing that you should be doing. And if
Yep.
you start to collect these little tidbits of joy in your life and you start to take notice of the things that bring you happiness, that's the thing. You need to start to follow that breadcrumb, follow
Yeah.
that trail, and you may not know where it's going, but I promise if you stay in that vessel, in that vein, you will end up exactly where you're supposed to be. And all these kind of
Amen.
um, offshoots along the way that you feel like, oh, I got a little distracted. I'm heading here, but I ended up working at a cashier here first. Those little offshoots are actually part of the divine plan. And I'm saying that from experience because, and we don't have the time today, but I am going to start to share a little bit more about this, and hopefully Daisy and I will do this again. I was having dreams about, I've lived a lot of different lives basically. And what I mean, actually here, I feel like I'm 40 years
Yeah.
old, but in my 40 years, I feel like they're kind of compartmented into like, and then this part of my life, I did this, and then this
Yeah.
part of my life, right? And I feel like they all added up to where I am today. But the funny thing is when I look where I'm at today and I really am living, I'm trying to get into this bigger purpose, this bigger life. And I finally feel like I'm on the right track fully, right? I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but it mimics the things that I loved when I was a little girl that I can still remember and still have dreams about some of these things. And so I had all these offshoots and variations in my life and things that kind of took me off track, maybe, but every one of them was experience that I needed to do what I'm doing now. And the place, so for those that don't know, my husband and I just purchased 150 plus acre historic farm on the eastern shore of Maryland. And I used to dream about this place. So it's a long story, but basically it took me losing everything in my life, and I mean material, kind of sense of self, all this makeup of who I was, this breakdown when the economics of the real estate market fell. I was part of that, and I lost everything, including who I thought I was. But what that did was gave me an opportunity to find myself differently. And I used to dream about this place, and I'd see apple orchards, and it was just a place where people would come and work and give of themselves in the gardens. And they were basically giving them themselves for other people. So growing vegetables, growing fruits, doing these things. They were helping other people in the community eat and function. But really what it was doing was helping them function. It was helping them to breathe again and get going again, find that life in themselves again through service. And so I would dream about this, and I used to call it imagine. Imagine if there was a place. Imagine if there's a place. So over about, I would say 14 years, I would dream of this place and it became clearer and clearer and clearer. And then one day, it was such a big idea, I think, that I had to grow into the person that could do it. And it became more and more clear. And then I started to get these readings from fellow colleagues, Tony Stockwell, Daisy, Lisa Short, some really trusted mediums that I know, because I had these really vivid dreams or sensation that I was supposed to start looking for a farm. I know, right? Like
Yeah.
who you're going to go live from the suburbs to the farm and you're going to do what? But I just felt like it was the time. And they were talking about this place. And it was so crazy because they were saying the exact things that I was seeing in my dreams and I felt drawn to. And so my husband and I looked and we ended up finding this place on the eastern shore of Maryland. And it should have never worked by every logical account. We should have never been able to buy this house, really. And I'll tell that story eventually, but for all kinds of reasons. But it worked. It worked out. And I'm kind of putting this in a nutshell. The funny thing is, and this is what I just thought about yesterday, Daisy. I asked my husband, what is it like something brought us here? but it started way before this property. And the reason I'm saying that is because when we moved this house, I'll tell you two little things. We moved into the house at our walkthrough a year ago. We've been here for 1 year almost. The light was on, right? Well, during the inspection, the front light wasn't on. This is over a 100-year-old home. There was no light. The light wasn't on. And in a reading that I got in a meditation, I wrote in my journal to my husband that we'll leave the light on for you. It was in my meditation. We showed up 30 minutes before my 40th birthday. We drive down a quarter a mile driveway and the light's on, the front light's on. And it stayed on for 3 days. We could not figure out how to turn this darn light off. It just stayed on. I'm like, well, we went from it not working to now we can't turn it off. We'll figure it out. And then it just went off. It went off. We had him rewire the light. We had him go in and like figure it out. So they had to dig a channel from the house to the light post. It wasn't wired. It was a 100-year-old wire that literally did not have a wire from the connecting point of the house to the actual light. There was no connection. It was insane. I just got these chills all over. And then we kept this a secret. We didn't tell anybody about it because this was such a long shot. We're like, what's going on? We invited Ty's mom and brothers up to see it. And his mom and his oldest brother said, you know, your dad put an offer on this house, Ty, when you were not even 1 year old.
Yeah.
That means Ty was connected to this property. His dad was in the process of trying to buy this property and actually wrote an offer on this property. Well, before I knew Ty, I wasn't even born yet. So it makes you kind of look backwards and say, I was having these dreams for all these years. We ended up at this place that people were saying before we even got here that matched this intuition, right? And then now you're starting to put the pieces together and say, well, my gosh, did they help get Ty and I together? Was that supposed to be this way? Were we driving for the same thing? And then what is our plan together? And I'm asking myself all these questions now. And it also just makes me so excited because if you allow it and if you let go of all these preconceived ideas of what life has in store for you, and you let go what everybody around you thinks, and you go with what your intuition says, and you follow the stream and the energy of your life, there is nothing you can't do and that you can't have if you believe that. I really believe that.
I love that.
We have will. We have free will. So I'm sorry that was a little bit of a story, but it's exciting to think, Spirit, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of any of this. Be excited about it. Every time you're up against something that's difficult, it's an opportunity to get into what you're supposed to be doing. When something doesn't work, it doesn't mean the answer is no. It just means you got to find another way. And usually what you want is 10 times bigger than what you're even imagining. So that's my little story. Like, let go. Don't be afraid of it. Don't ask too many questions. Don't ask all your friends and neighbors what you think you should do with your life. Start to pay attention to what's happening in your life and what's like lighting you up. You know, but do you have something like that in your life, Daisy, that you just felt like, wow, all the synchronicities that happen to get you there, right?
Oh, totally. No, I love that so much. And I was getting chills when you were talking about it, just because like I remember this whole process, just because I met you before you ever found this property and all the things that I would bring through for you. And just like, it was so exciting and I could feel it, and I love, well, that was one of the things that made me such a believer too, in spirit, in a higher power, in a destiny and a purpose. I mean, for me, most people that know me at least, know that like my whole background is really with terrible addiction and alcoholism, eating disorder, mental health problems, abusive relationships. Like my life was a mess for a long time. And, I think a lot of times, I mean, it's very common for people that are mediums to have those things happen to them. And I think there's a lot of reasons behind that, which I won't, that's a whole another episode, but basically, I've been able to appreciate that stuff at a level that I never knew was even possible, by doing mediumship, by pursuing that calling of mediumship, and how much that it's actually just enhanced and helped my mediumship more than anything. And I'm able to look back and see all the things that happened in my life and all of the things that all coincided to bring me to my path. And I don't think any of that would have, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be who I am today. So I'm grateful for all the horrible stuff that I went through. And also it makes you appreciate it more. It makes you And I think that's one of the most positive and most healing ways to deal with trauma and deal with past stuff, which is why I love mediumship, is that you're able to take all this horrible stuff that may have happened to you and it becomes something beautiful. It becomes something useful, something that you are able to heal other people with. And what an amazing thing to be able to experience that. And anyone can experience that. You don't have to be a medium to experience that. Everyone has a path. Everyone has a soul that is connected to a higher purpose. And Arlene said it so beautifully of just talking about how like it's just listening to that is going to help bring you along that path and really find yourself and find that purpose. It's one of the easiest ways to start, is like what she was just saying, is, you know, looking inward and really paying attention to what's the thing that lights you up, what's the thing that makes you just naturally excited and is effortless too, is just natural for you. So I love that. And I think it's just such a positive story, because I know you've also been through so much stuff too, as have I, which is where I mean, we just connect so much on that. And mediumship is such a healing, wonderful thing. And it's so awesome that we get to transmute that into this energy to help other people. So I could talk to you for like literally like 10 hours. Like we could talk for like 10 hours. So maybe we'll do that next time. We'll do a 10-hour episode. But for now, I'm gonna unfortunately have to wrap it up a little bit. But one thing I did want to share was just that for anybody that is feeling called to work with spirit, to dive into that calling, if they feel like it's been around, it's something that they've been feeling connected to or drawn to, I have a beginner's mediumship course starting this Wednesday. And I have an amazing group of people. So I'm really, really excited. And the energy around it is really awesome. So I'm super excited. I will put the link in the comments for everybody to read more details if they'd like. And Arlene, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way that they could reach out?
Yeah, they can message you for my direct information. I don't have a website and a Facebook
Right.
page. I feel like it's not about promotion. The right people will
Yeah.
find me, and I do serve on lots of platforms, so you might see me in different things. But the other thing is my Facebook Messenger. You can see me
Yeah.
tagged probably in this video. Feel free to message me, and I will happily help you with any questions you may have.
Yay, yeah. And same here. If anybody, yeah, just, I mean, message either of us if anyone has questions, or, you know, you just really related to what we talked about today and want to share something. We're always happy to hear that and just talk to anybody and help out if we can. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we will be back very soon. This was so fun. So we will definitely be doing this again very soon. So thank you, everybody. Bye. Have a
Thank you,
beautiful
Daisy.
day.
Bye. Thank you.